Well, hello everybody. I feel like a bit of a pretender with such esteemed and erudite speakers. I'm slightly in awe of those who've been here genuinely working in this area so much longer than I have. As you may know, I am a lawyer. I was a lawyer for 25 years before I started this job last year. And I grew up with my mother running the Citizen Advice Bureau in Brent. And knowing how she would greet that enormously long line of people that would go round the corner on Willesden High Street trying to get in for advice every Monday morning, sometimes every Wednesday morning as well, or Friday, how they would have to shut the doors to people. And from the 80s through the 90s through the 2000s, it seems that line never went away. It went online after a while, or it went on the phone, but that line was always there, and it will always be there. It's always going to be there. And so the challenge we have is to work out how we continue to adapt through voluntary and other sectors that need to provide that fundamental community support and welfare support for people who aren't going to get it elsewhere. The work that you do is going to be the final place that people will come to in many occasions to be able to change their lives and protect them and insulate them from the worst that society is causing for them. So for that reason, it's very important to understand that whatever we do for the future is not going to make that line go away, realistically, but we continue to have to adapt to make sure that what we do provide for the future is really going to cause serious change in terms of making sure we stay up to date with the problems as they change. So first of all, thank you very much for inviting me, and I think you've heard already today about many of the challenges that we will be looking at into the future here in London and elsewhere. An ageing population, technological challenges, the reshaping of our politics, probably into the next few decades as we decide where we're going with Brexit and Europe, increasing inequality, potentially, certainly has been increasing over the last few years and is getting worse, diminishing opportunities, stagnant wages. Here in London, 270,000 more families in poverty in recent years. About 1 in 5, 690,000 Londoners earn below the living wage. Those are grim statistics, and it's important that we work out how in the future we can change those statistics in a positive way. For civil society organisations, it means more demands for you and fewer public funding. So far, that's the climate we've been in. We hope that will change, but we have to work on the basis that it may remain the same. So how do you develop and remain agile in relation to trying to cope with those problems? Well, very helpfully, my team have provided me with a very useful briefing for which I can address you on those things. And I have a list of things I can talk to you about that the Mayor is doing, and to some extent boast about how hard we're trying to address those problems. So I'm going to do a little bit of that, but I'm going to sort of sidestep some of my very brilliant briefing from my team who are here in order to talk to you about some other things that I think are really important when it comes to considering the future. There are three areas that we can focus on. Firstly, there is the need for public sector organisations to reshape the systems within which we work. And we're trying to do that within the GLA. We have a new civil society strategy that we're working on. We have dedicated officers that we've brought in for the first time to really be talking about civil society strategy. We are taking very seriously how we move on from the Way Ahead review and what we do and how we incorporate that into our work. And we're trying to work out how we have a better relationship in co-producing with grassroots organisations, finding better ways we can work between City Hall and the organisation within London to make sure that we are providing an effective environment within which those organisations can work. We have some innovative ideas and strategies. We've used one of them, has been in effect for several months now, which is our Civil Integration Initiative. Citizens Integration Initiative, which is a partnership we have with Trust for London and others, through which a pooled fund allows us to have seconded into the GLA people from third sector or voluntary organisations in London, so they can work with us for a while, see how we work, they see how we work, we see how they work, they look at the ways we handle problems, and as a result we are developing a set of knowledge, a history, a working practice that helps us co-produce more effectively the solutions that we need. Secondly, I think it's really important that we focus on London's strengths. In particular, we think social integration is at the heart of what we need to do in London in order to make sure that Londoners have good skills and a good environment in which they're protected from the worst aspects of income inequality and the other inequalities through the system. And so we have a whole programme of events we're running around social integration. Much of it is about dealing with poverty, ensuring that barriers to people's welfare are broken down, being a good advocate when the mayor doesn't have specific powers to make sure he's supporting the needs of those organisations. And helping particular target groups. We have work that we want to do around particular groups of Londoners who are stuck within a particular profile of education or income or difficulty with employment. We want to make sure we can make real change in partnership with others to those groups within London. And thirdly, really, we want to ensure that Londoners can actively participate. It's not just about, social integration isn't just about breaking down barriers, it's about ensuring people have an opportunity to actively participate in their communities. And so there are strands of work that we're trying to do around that to make sure that those who want to assist others within the communities can do so. And in the context of those who are here, that means improving the offer we have around volunteering, which falls within my remit, making sure that we have a volunteer force in London that is better directed towards the community groups that need it. And the long, well-established practice we've had of volunteering around major events in London, we're now moving that forward to another stage, which is to work out how ordinary Londoners can incorporate volunteering in their community into their ordinary life. So those are the three things, in very quick summary, that I wanted to mention to you that we are doing. And you'll be hearing a lot more about our programs over coming months as we're starting to go from a thinking process that we've had for the first year into a doing process. And we're releasing our diversity inclusion strategy soon. We're doing lots of other work. We're hoping some of you who already fed into that for us. I've met with a number of organisations to inform that work, and we're hoping you'll continue to work with us on that. But finally, I'll get to the bit that I think probably I wanted to talk to you about, which is important to me when we're talking about this particular topic. So I've done my bit about what the mayor's doing. Important work as it is, this occupies my everyday. But what I think is really important going into the future, and what anybody who's heard me speak before knows I'm likely to talk about, is data. And the importance of how you use data. And if I can have a couple of minutes, I'm going to talk a little bit about why I think data is the key to ensuring that and understanding data is ensuring that we have a voluntary sector that is skilled up for the future. We live in a world where every business model and increasingly every aspect of government is built around data. Data is the fuel that drives business and is becoming the fuel that drives the public sector. Big data, how we gather data, how we use data, the algorithms that crunch down that data increasingly inform public policy. Everything from the extent to which we feel we can force people to go strictly online for their resources, down to where we allocate resources and who needs them the most and which communities need them most. So what does that mean for smaller organisations? Well, what we're really determined to do at City Hall is ensure that we are helping small organisations skill themselves up to do the important work they do in a new world in the future, which is going to be largely driven by how we understand and handle the data that drives our public services. What does that mean? That means that you have data through the work that you do that is going to be vital for how the resources are going to be allocated towards your work. You will need to understand how to collect that data and how to share that data. And we at City Hall want to, through our civil society work, want to make sure we are giving you the skills and the templates, the opportunity and the access to be able to work with data more efficiently. Because for most people who've entered the type of work that you do, becoming a data scientist was not on top of their list. But that is, to some extent, a skill we are all going to have to develop in our work. So, in practice, what that means is we want to help smaller organizations have the skills and templates they need to have simple ways of knowing how to protect their data, because we want to be a global leader in using data, but a global leader in protecting data. Trust in relation to data is critical for our stakeholders, ordinary people that are going to work with us. You must pay attention to the data that you have. Some of you will have data about your users that no government agency is aware of, no government agency knows about, and we all know about the dark web, that bit of the web that can't be indexed, that isn't indexed. When you go into Google, you can't find it. There are going to be entire communities, if we're not careful in this country, who will be the dark communities when it comes to data. They're not indexed, no one will know about them, public policy will just miss them out. When the metaphorical Google search engine is entered for public policy, local government or central government, they won't find those communities, they won't find their needs. You have that data, you can index those communities, you can put them on the map. So we need to help you do that. We need to help skill you up for that. And we need to make sure that you are getting what you need from us. You need to understand what data, the data that we have. We have the London Data Store, that we're trying to really develop much further in a much more comprehensive way to make sure it's useful to you. Please use it. Please test it. Push it to its limit. If there's information in there that you're not using or you think you would like to have but you can't find it, tell us. And tell us repeatedly. I want to find out the limits of my team's ability to respond to your needs. I want to find the ceiling on what they can do so that we can then extend it. But we're going to need you to engage with it. We want you to understand the data we have, the data you have, how that data is used. And we want, most of all, for you to help us shape the way data will be used in the future. Because whatever policy comes out, whether it's a new universal credit with all of the problems that rollout has, whether it's some other policy, it's going to be based on the information and the evidence that's been gathered, and that's going to be about the data about your stakeholders in all parts of the country. And putting your stakeholders on the map when it comes to public policy is not going to be about a speech where you say, somebody was in my office and they told me X. I've seen people at food banks and it's been Y. It's going to be about saying, this is the number of people within this ward who's got a problem. This is the number of people who've come into our office. These are the number of migrants, people with particular needs, people with depression, etc., etc. Giving those numbers out is going to make a difference to your stakeholders and your communities, not simply telling anecdotes as we've all grown up doing. So for that reason, my message, I think, in relation to the future, apart from the amazing stuff we're already doing, which I've talked about, is to say, please, together, let us help you find out the best way we can use the data that we need, get comfortable with using that data, and prepare ourselves for a future where that data is going to determine how resources are allocated. Thank you.